knew he had lived there before. The furniture felt familiar, the walls too recognizable. But when he tried to remember moving in, his mind went completely blank. There are houses that feel warm the moment you step inside, and others that feel cold no matter how much sunlight fills the rooms. Psychologists say this reaction often comes from memory, how spaces remind us of past experiences even when we can't explain why. But this story explores a place where that process seems to work in reverse. The house itself was ordinary, suburban, quiet, built sometime in the late 20th century. No record shows it as historically significant. No tragedies are officially linked to the address. That is important because nothing about its reputation comes from documented events. Everything comes from the people who lived there and what they couldn't remember afterward. The first tenant moved in after a job relocation. He described the house as comfortable but oddly unfinished, though nothing was actually missing. The rooms were clean. The appliances worked. The layout was simple. What stood out was how quickly the space felt familiar. Within days, he was navigating the rooms without thinking, reaching for light switches instinctively, turning corners without hesitation. Familiarity should have been reassuring. Instead, it unsettled him. He realized something was wrong when he tried to recall the first night he slept there. He remembered unpacking boxes. He remembered cooking a simple meal. But the memory of lying down, closing his eyes, and waking up was missing. It felt as though sleep itself had been removed from his recollection. He dismissed it as stress. Over the following weeks, small gaps appeared. Conversations with co-workers repeated themselves. He forgot whether he had already made certain phone calls. Notes appeared on his desk in handwriting he recognized as his own but did not remember writing. It felt like his life was happening in fragments, like watching a movie with scenes cut out at random. Medical explanations were considered. Fatigue, anxiety, adjustment stress, all plausible. Then he noticed the calendar. Entire days were crossed off, marked with check marks and brief notes like paid bills or clean kitchen. He remembered doing those things. What he couldn't remember was the day itself. The morning, the afternoon, passage of time. It was as if the events remained, but the experience had been erased. The what was there, but the how and when were gone. He tried keeping a journal, recording details every night. At first, the entries helped. Reading them grounded him like an anchor in a sea of confusion. But after a while, the handwriting changed subtly. The tone shifted. The entries became shorter, more mechanical. One entry ended mid-sentence. The next day, the journal was closed, as if the person writing it had simply stopped. He moved out shortly after. When asked why, he said only that the house felt too quiet. He couldn't explain further. Months later, he struggled to recall the layout of the place at all. The memory of the house had become as patchy as the time he'd spent inside it. The second occupant stayed longer. She was a graduate student drawn to the low-rent and convenient location. She was smart, organized, and not prone to flights of fancy. She reported no issues for the first month. Then she noticed something unsettling, photographs on her phone that she didn't remember taking. They showed ordinary moments, her sitting on the couch, her cooking, her reading at the table. The images weren't staged. They looked candid, as if someone else had taken them. But she lived alone. In several, she appeared distracted, almost distant. Her eyes focused on something just out of frame. The metadata showed the photos were taken late at night, during hours she thought she was asleep. Disturbed, she set up a camera in the living room as an experiment. First few nights of footage showed her moving through the space calmly, deliberately. She watched herself clean, rearrange furniture, and sit quietly for long periods, staring at nothing in particular. Had no memory of these actions. It was like watching a stranger who looked exactly like her, living a secret life in her own home. She consulted a neurologist. Tests came back normal. No signs of dissociation severe enough to explain the behavior. Therapy was suggested, but she knew this wasn't just in her head. Then the footage changed. One night, the camera recorded her standing in the hallway, facing the wall. She remained there for nearly 40 minutes, unmoving. When she finally turned, her expression was flat, not frightened, not confused. It was empty, the look of a person whose mind was somewhere else entirely. Or maybe not there at all. She deleted the footage and moved out within a week, telling the landlord it was a family emergency. She never looked back. The neighbors noticed a pattern. People didn't stay long. The turnover was constant, a revolving door of tenants who arrived with hope and left in a hurry. When asked about previous tenants, no one could recall details. Names slipped away easily. Time frames blurred. Was it a man or a woman who lived there last year? One might ask. I can't quite remember, would be the reply. The house seemed to have an aura of forgettability that extended beyond its walls, affecting even those who only lived nearby. This is where speculation begins. Some suggested environmental factors: carbon monoxide, mold, electromagnetic interference. These explanations are reasonable and documented causes of memory disturbance, but multiple inspections found nothing abnormal. No leaks, no contamination, no wiring issues. The air was clean, the foundation solid. The house was, by all scientific measures, perfectly safe. Others suggested something psychological: mass suggestion, shared anxiety, stories feeding fear. That too is possible. Maybe the first tenant as unease created a story that primed the next person to feel the same way. A self-fulfilling prophecy passed from one occupant to another. But that doesn't explain the photographs or the journal or the security footage. It doesn't explain the most troubling detail, one that appears in nearly every account. People reported forgetting not just time spent inside the house, but time immediately before and after leaving it. A trip to the grocery store would become a blur. A phone call made in the car after pulling out of the driveway would vanish. It was as if the gaps extended outward, blurring the boundary between inside and outside, a creeping void that consumed more than just the hours spent within its walls. The final known occupant was a man recovering from a personal loss. He sought isolation, quiet, a place where he could be alone with his thoughts. The house offered both. He stayed the longest, nearly a year. He rarely had visitors and kept to himself. When he finally left, he did so abruptly. He packed only essentials, leaving furniture and personal belongings behind, and drove away in the middle of the night. Later, when contacted by a property manager about his abandoned security deposit, he struggled to remember the house at all. He knew he had lived somewhere. He remembered the town. He remembered the street name. But the interior of the house was gone from his mind. He described it like this: I know something was happening to me there. I just don't know what. It was a year of his life. Due to a feeling of unease and a blank space where memory should have been. The house still stands. New owners have renovated it. Fresh paint, new fixtures, nothing unusual on inspection reports. And yet, people who visit sometimes experience a strange sensation, the sense that they've been there before, even when they haven't. A powerful, unexplainable déjà vu. Or worse, the sense that something important is slipping away as they stand inside, like trying to hold water in your hands. Psychology tells us memory is fragile, easily altered, easily lost. That is a fact. Minds are not perfect recording devices. They are storytellers, constantly editing and rewriting our past. What cannot be confirmed is whether a place itself can influence that loss. Can a collection of wood, plaster, and glass actively erase the experiences that happen within it? Science would say no, but the stories persist. They persist because they touch a deeper fear, not of ghosts or shadows, but of forgetting who we are while still moving through the world. The fear of our own minds becoming an unreliable narrator of our own lives. Because a house that erases memories doesn't need to trap you with locked doors or hidden passages. It only needs you to stay long enough to forget why you should leave. Thank you for watching. If stories like this make you think, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Stay curious.